In 2019, Ethiopia opened the largest textile factory in Africa. $200 million, 15,000 workers, state-of-the-art machinery from Germany. 18 months later, it shut down. Not because the products were bad, not because workers were lazy, but because of a number, a percentage, a tax that made it impossible to sell anything at a profit. That factory could produce a shirt for $2.40. The exact same shirt made in China cost $2.60. Ethiopia had the advantage. But when that Ethiopian shirt tried to enter the United States, it got hit with a 16% tariff. The Chinese shirt, 6%. Same product, lower cost, higher tax. The factory never stood a chance. If you are new here, then please like, share, and subscribe to channel. This is happening right now in dozens of countries. Factories closing before they open, industries dying before they start. Not because of competition, because of a system designed half a century ago that nobody bothered to dismantle. It's called tariff escalation. And it's the reason your cheap t-shirt will never come from the countries that actually need the money. There's a question economists don't like to answer. Why are the same countries always poor? It's been 70 years since decolonization, 70 years of loans, aid programs, infrastructure projects, and development plans. Trillions of dollars spent. And yet, sub-Saharan Africa's share of global manufacturing has actually fallen since 1980. Not stagnated. Fallen. Bangladesh is still making cheap shirts. Ghana is still exporting raw cocoa. Honduras is still shipping unprocessed coffee beans. The script never changes, and the usual explanations don't add up. Corruption? Sure, it exists. But South Korea was corrupt in the 1960s and still built an industrial economy. Lack of education? Vietnam had lower literacy rates than Kenya in 1990. Now Vietnam makes smartphones, and Kenya still exports tea leaves. Something else is going on, and that something is written into every major trade agreement signed in the last 50 years. It's in the fine print, the tariff schedules, the thousands of pages nobody reads. Here's the pattern. The more you process a product, the higher the tax you pay to sell it. Raw materials move freely. Finished goods hit a wall. It's not hidden. It's published by the World Trade Organization, defended by trade negotiators, and it's quietly destroying any chance poor countries have of becoming rich ones. Let me show you the math that nobody talks about. Let's start with coffee. Because coffee explains everything, Colombia grows some of the best coffee in the world. They export 600,000 tons a year, almost all of it as green, unroasted beans. Those beans enter the European Union at 0% tariff. Zero. Now, what if Colombia roasted those beans before exporting them? Just one extra step. Add heat, remove moisture, create a product people can actually use. That roasted coffee enters the EU at 7.5%. What if they went further, ground the beans, packaged them, created instant coffee, 9% tariff? If you understand what is tariff, then comment tariff in comment box. Same beans, same country. But every step of processing makes it harder to compete. Here's what that means in real money. Colombia earns about $2.6 billion a year from raw coffee exports. If they processed all of it into roasted and packaged coffee, that number could be $8 billion. That's $5.4 billion left on the table every year, just from coffee. And it's not like Colombia hasn't tried. In 2003, they built processing facilities, hired workers, bought equipment. They were going to become the coffee equivalent of Switzerland for chocolate. Then European coffee roasters, the big ones, lobbied their governments, not directly against Colombia, just for quality standards and food safety regulations that happened to make imported roasted coffee more expensive. The tariffs stayed. The Colombian facilities couldn't compete. Most shut down within 5 years. Now let's look at cocoa. Ivory Coast and Ghana produce 60% of the world's cocoa. That's 3 million tons, worth about $6 billion when sold as raw beans. Those beans enter the EU at 0% tariff. But if they process those beans into cocoa powder, the tariff jumps to 6%. Turn it into chocolate and it hits 30%. The math is vicious. A chocolate bar that costs 50 cents to make in Ghana would need to sell for 65 cents in Europe just to break even after tariffs. The same bar made in Belgium from Ghanaian beans faces no internal tariffs at all. Ghana has tried for 2 decades to build a chocolate industry. The factories exist. The workers are trained. But they can't scale because they can't compete with that 30% handicap. This isn't isolated. It's the rule. Leather from Ethiopia, fish from Senegal, timber from Cameroon, cashews from Tanzania. The pattern repeats across every commodity. And here's the part that makes it truly effective. Rich countries don't tariff raw materials because they need them. Their factories need inputs, but they tariff finished goods because their workers need jobs. It's not evil, it's just interest. National interest, voter interest, the interest of people who already have power. Now, the defense you'll hear goes like this. Developing countries need to improve quality first. They need better infrastructure, more skilled workers, then they can compete. That sounds reasonable, until you realize it's backwards. Countries don't get skilled workers by exporting raw materials. They get skilled workers by building factories. They don't improve quality by staying at the bottom of the value chain. They improve quality by climbing it. South Korea in 1965 made terrible products. Cars that broke down. Electronics that caught fire. Their quality was a joke, but they protected their industries, subsidized factories, and climbed the ladder anyway. By 1985, Samsung was competing with Sony. Hyundai was selling cars in America. That ladder still existed in 1965. It doesn't exist now because the countries that climbed it first pulled it up behind them. In 1995, the World Trade Organization was formed with a promise: reduce tariffs globally, create a level playing field, let everyone compete. And tariffs did fall. For raw materials, they dropped to near zero. But for processed goods, they barely moved. The average tariff on raw agricultural products entering rich countries is 2%. For processed food, it's 15%. For textiles and garments, it's 11%. Hit that like button if you understand how US play tariff war. The WTO published this data in 2021. It's not a secret. It's just not a headline. And here's what makes it truly trapped. Developing countries can't retaliate. If Ghana raised tariffs on European chocolate to 30%, Europe would cut off trade entirely. Ghana needs the export market. Europe doesn't. If Ethiopia tried to match American tariffs on textiles, American brands would just source from Vietnam or Bangladesh. Ethiopia would lose the few orders it has. The leverage is entirely one-sided, and the result is a system where poor countries are locked into exporting the least valuable version of what they produce forever. The World Bank ran the numbers in 2020. If tariff escalation were eliminated, meaning finished goods face the same tariffs as raw materials, developing countries would see an additional $60 billion in export revenue per year. $60 billion. Not from aid, not from debt relief, just from being allowed to compete on equal terms. But that 60 billion has to come from somewhere, and it would come from workers in rich countries who would face more competition. So the system stays. Here's what this really is. It's a global division of labor designed by the countries that won World War II and locked in place by the trade agreements they wrote. Poor countries dig, grow, and extract. Rich countries process, brand, and sell. It's efficient for the system, terrible for the countries at the bottom. And it's not just about money, it's about development itself. Economic development has always followed the same path. You start with agriculture, you move to light manufacturing, then heavy industry, then services and technology. Every rich country followed this path. Britain, America, Japan, South Korea, China. But that path requires moving up the value chain. And moving up the value chain requires being able to sell processed goods. If you can't do that, you're stuck. Your economy doesn't develop. Your workforce doesn't gain skills. Your infrastructure doesn't improve. Bangladesh has been making garments for 40 years. 40 years, and they still can't move into higher-end fashion or technical textiles because the tariff structure makes it impossible to compete with Turkey or Italy. Vietnam is trying to move from assembling electronics to designing them. But every time they add more value, the tariffs rise, so they stay stuck in assembly. This is why Africa's manufacturing share has fallen. It's why Latin America never became the next Asia. It's why the gap between rich and poor countries isn't closing. The ladder is missing. And the people at the top keep saying, just work harder, just improve quality, just compete. As if competition is possible when the rules are written by your competitors. But here's where it gets interesting. Some countries are starting to say, fine, we'll build our own system. The African Continental Free Trade Area launched in 2021. 54 countries agreed to drop tariffs on goods traded within Africa. The idea is simple. If we can't sell processed goods to Europe, we'll sell them to each other. It's fragile. Infrastructure is weak. Trust is low. But it's the first real attempt to escape the trap. Vietnam is doing something similar. They're building regional supply chains in Southeast Asia, sourcing components locally, selling finished products regionally, not because it's more efficient, but because it bypasses Western tariff structures entirely. And then there's China. China is offering African countries a deal. We'll build your ports, your railways, your power plants. In exchange, process your materials locally and sell them to us. It's not charity. It's strategy. But it might work. Because if African countries can build processing industries without needing to access Western markets, the leverage shifts. Suddenly, Europe and America are competing for access instead of granting it. This isn't guaranteed. Regional trade zones fail constantly, and Chinese infrastructure loans come with their own problems. But for the first time in decades, the system is being challenged, not with protests, not with speeches, but with an alternative. So here's the reality. Please share this video to your friends and hit that subscribe button to never miss such kind of videos. The global trade system isn't designed to help poor countries become rich. It's designed to keep raw materials cheap and finished goods expensive. It's not a conspiracy. It's just interest. The interest of voters in Ohio who don't want to compete with workers in Ethiopia. The interest of chocolate makers in Belgium who don't want competition from Ghana. And those interests have more power than the countries being locked out. You won't hear politicians talk about this. Trade policy doesn't win elections. Tariff schedules don't make headlines. But the numbers are brutal. Billions in lost revenue. Millions of jobs that could exist but don't. Entire industries killed before they start. And the strangest part is that everyone admits it's unfair. The World Bank publishes reports. The UN holds conferences. Economists write papers calling it inefficient and counterproductive. But the system doesn't change, because the people who benefit from it are the same people who have to vote to end it. So the question isn't whether tariff escalation is keeping poor countries poor. The question is whether the countries that built this system will ever have a reason to tear it down.